Well, thanks for doing this. We appreciate it.
Happy to.
All right. Well, let's begin by talking about your early life. Who were your early role models, and what kinds of values did you get from your parents as a young person?
You know, obviously my parents played a key role in my life. I'll tell you, probably the most significant role model was my grandmother on my mother's side.
Before we go any further, could you sort of pull your coat back?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of grab it by the back and pull down. There we go.
How's that?
Yeah, that's fine. I just noticed it was starting to bunch a little at the back.
Is that better?
Very good. Sorry about that.
No problem.
And we're still rolling. Let's begin with that again.
You know, my parents played a key role in my childhood, but my grandmother, my mom's mom, Ludine Parrish, we spent a lot of time with her as kids, and she was just an incredible lady. You know, she was from the South, from Nashville, Tennessee, a wonderful cook, taught me how to cook fried chicken and baked biscuits as a young child. She also loved golf, taught me how to hit a 7-iron, you know, a pitch and roll 7-iron, taught me how to play penny ante poker, taught me how to knit, and I just remember going over to her house, and it was constantly a new adventure. And I think she really had a passion and a love for life, and that was one of the key things she instilled in me and all of the kids, all my brothers and sisters. But my parents, of course, played a key role, and there were basic values in our house. You know, they started with hard work, they started with discipline, they started with integrity, they started with telling the truth, some of the basic things, and they ended with giving back. We were very fortunate, grew up here in Chicago, in Wilmette, and we lived a good life, and the expectation was that we would all spend time, you know, finding a way to give back to the community and others.
What did your parents do?
My dad started off in consulting, working with my grandfather, and my mother always wanted to be a homemaker and a mother. We had 3 other brothers and sisters. There were 4 of us, so my father eventually went into the corporate world and was a CEO of Emerson Electric, but that's when we moved down to St. Louis for a short period of time. But we lived a pretty traditional life growing up here in the Chicago area.
You went to Cornell, got a BS in industrial engineering and an MBA. How did your education prepare you for a career start shortly after that at Baxter International?
You know, Cornell was great, and my grandfather and father had gone there and both been engineers and gotten business degrees. You know, the technical degree of an engineering degree, I never really wanted to be an engineer, but it was a good basis, a great platform for analytical thinking, and adding a business degree to it is really where I wanted to go, going into business. My grandfather started his own firm in 1935, a consulting firm. My dad was CEO of a large public company. I always wanted to be a leader, to run something from a business standpoint. And as I interviewed coming out of school with a lot of different Fortune 500 companies, Baxter really struck me. When I came out of there, my wife said, "Your eyes were sparkling," and she kind of knew this was going to be the place that I may want to work. And the reasons were twofold. One, it was a great company, growing, lots of opportunity.
Okay.
I don't know what that is.
That's a new one on me. Well, let's start back.
Yeah.
You don't have to repeat the whole thing. What appealed to you about Baxter?
Well, a couple things. You know, one, company that was growing 20% a year, had a lot of interesting new products and new markets it was developing. So a lot of opportunity for a young person to come in and make a difference. But secondarily, as I started to understand what they did and the products they made in healthcare, I really started my passion for, you know, doing something on the business side, but doing something that really made a difference for people. You know, developing products that would either save lives or improve somebody's quality of life. And that started a long career that I've had in the healthcare field because of that passion around developing products and services that help people.
What were some of the products that Baxter was involved in those days?
Well, I started off in the IV division, intravenous solutions. So you go in a hospital and you are having a surgery and you get an IV put in your. We had the largest position and the largest plant in the world that made IV solutions. I also worked in the renal area, renal dialysis. So if you've got kidney disease, we made products, machines that help transfer the blood and clean the blood. We also did things in blood collection. We were the largest leader in collecting blood for the Red Cross and, those type of products, basically. We got into drugs. They were in a whole host of hospital-based products.
You rose through the ranks pretty quickly there, held a number of positions. As you say, you got kind of a passion for the industry there. What did you learn there that kept pushing you on down the line or pushing you up the line in the world?
Well, I was very fortunate. There were a lot of people who helped me along the way, and Vern Laux, Bill Gantz, Jim Tobin, Lance Piccolo, so many other Baxter executives who I worked for and worked with. They continued to give me opportunities, promote me along the way. As you say, I moved pretty quickly, but again, there were just so many new businesses sprouting up at Baxter, so many opportunities that if you worked hard and you did well, you got plenty of opportunities to show what you could do.
What led to the spin-off of Allegiance in '96?
Yeah, one of the businesses Baxter bought was American Hospital Supply, one of the largest distributors of products in the world, healthcare products in the world. That acquisition never really fit in very well, candidly. It wasn't a technology business. It wasn't a global business like Baxter's other businesses. And in 1996, 95, the company decided to spin it off and make it a separate independent company. And Vern Laux and I had a very long talk about it. He wanted me to take that and become CEO of that company, and I decided to do that at that time.
Well, it became very successful. I was just reading the Bloomberg profile. Went up to $4.5 billion in annual revenues, upwards of 20,000 employees. The stock increased several times over. What was the key to its success?
Well, it was a great opportunity. It was a company that had underperformed. It was a company that had not been invested in. Employees were not as motivated because it was kind of a stepchild within Baxter. So we had the opportunity to take it out, create something new, something exciting. It was almost a startup company that was suddenly, as you say, 20,000 employees and $4 billion in sales, but it was a new company. We put a new name on it, Allegiance, which meant allegiance to the customer and connection to the customer. And we got people excited about coming to work again every day. And we focused on the basics in business, good cash flow, creating value with our customers, creating profitability through focusing on new products. And we were able to really create a new spirit and invigorate the company from a great company that just hadn't done so well for a long time.
What was the major product line?
We were both a distributor, so we carried all products that went into hospitals. And then we manufactured some of those. Some of the big products were the gowns and the drapes that were used in an operating room. We did a lot of the surgical instruments that were used there. A lot of things around the surgical suite.
Part of the reason I'm asking that is I have a lot of access to B-roll from the SIU Medical School that shows a lot of this. So I'm wanting to make sure I've got an idea exactly what to be showing when we're talking about that.
That'd be great.
It merged later with Cardinal Health.
Yes.
And you were an executive with Cardinal for a while?
Not long. We decided about 3 or 4 years into the spinoff that the industry was consolidating. Drug distributors were getting together with med-surg distributors, and we decided to bring the company together with Cardinal. Obviously, it was a very good deal for the shareholders. They were very happy about it with what we did, and the employees had an opportunity to be with a bigger company that could continue to invest in their strategy.
How closely after that does Roundtable Healthcare Partners start?
I waited about a year and a half, left Cardinal, and made a transition, and we started Roundtable in about 2001, so it was about 1.5 to 2 years.
I've read that it's described as an equity firm that investing in the healthcare industry. For the lay audience, how would you best describe what the company does, what the corporation does?
Well, Roundtable is a privately held private equity firm that focuses totally on healthcare. The same type of products and services that Baxter and Cardinal and other companies, big companies in the industry provide, but we focus on the smaller companies, the smaller high growth niches of the industry, and we actually bring capital and buy those companies, work with founder owners and work with management teams to grow those companies, try to provide a lot of our experience, our contacts, our different experiences we've had in the industry, and bring capital to them and help them grow. And it's been a lot of fun, very entrepreneurial, very invigorating every day, and again, still focused on that same ability to try to maybe improve people's lives and in some cases save lives with the type of products we make.
I've seen that you focus on a lot of the newer high-tech, high-growth companies. Recent acquisition was a BD Opticals, or that was a fairly recent one.
Yes, we just purchased from Becton Dickinson their ophthalmic business, and again, the eyes are. If you have seen it, and I see it coming, over the next 5-10 years, as the population ages, eventually people end up having eye surgeries, cataract surgeries, those types of things. So we see that as a great field, and the BD company provides many of the supplies needed to perform those surgeries.
How large would you say this company, Roundtable Partners, is as far as what it does, and where is it in scale?
We have about $1.5 billion of capital that we put out to invest in different companies. We have about 3,000 to 4,000 employees in 11 companies today that we manage in that portfolio. Roundtable's never been about being the biggest private equity business. That hasn't been our goal. What we want to be is the best healthcare middle market private equity firm in the country, and best is measured by both what do we do and produce and build in these companies, and what do we return to our investors. And our returns so far have been outstanding. So
I was going to ask about core values, but you pretty much laid them out there. I want to talk a little bit too about Aon Corporation. I did an interview with Pat Ryan some years back when he was honored by the Academy. What does the non-executive chairman do in a corporation like Aon?
I've been very fortunate. I've been on the Aon board 10 plus years. Pat brought me onto that board over 10 years ago, and played multiple roles, have learned the industry and the company. It's a wonderful company to work with. And when Pat Ryan retired 3 or 4 years ago, they decided to, at that point in time, split the role of chairman and CEO. He had been chairman and CEO. They decided to split the role to have a CEO and a chairman, which is happening a lot today in governance of big companies. And they looked around the board and did a process, an interview process, and decided that I'd be the appropriate person, which has been a very, very interesting role. It's, you're not running the company day in, day out. The CEO is doing that, but you're helping run the board and helping facilitate the process with the CEO, implementing the strategy. And again, Aon's just a great place to work. So
it was interesting to see how it came out of, I believe it was, goodness gracious, Clement Stone's organization many years ago, and how Pat was able to grow it into a global company.
Right.
And it's diversifying. I just saw this week where it's moved to acquire Hewitt Associates,
yes,
expanded into consulting.
Yeah. It's been, Aon, of course, is known for its risk management services, its brokerage services, brokering insurance. It's had a consulting arm for many, many years. There's a lot of relationship between human capital and managing human capital, consulting, and risk management in companies. So we decided and just announced, as you said, a major acquisition of Hewitt, who is the leader in really outsourcing HR type services and consulting. It'll merge together with Aon's consulting business and really will be the leader in human capital both consulting and outsourcing. Very exciting.
Yeah. One thing I didn't ask about, and it goes through all of us, what are your personal core values as someone who works in highly competitive, very goal-driven companies, but at the same time working to make sure that ethics are followed, that the corporate values are something really worth living up to?
Well, my personal values start with the only thing you have in life is your reputation, and you build your reputation through honesty, integrity, good relationships with people. That's where it all starts, in business or personally, and I don't separate the two. And so bring a lot of that to whatever I do. And after that, as I said, my parents and others taught me hard work usually prevails. Surrounding yourself with really good people and working with good people usually helps. And being humble about what you do. I've been very fortunate in life to be able to achieve a lot at a relatively young age, and I don't take all the credit for that at all. I mean, my wife and kids have been a big part of it, my parents, and all the different mentors I've had throughout my life have helped so much. And so it's, a big value of mine is just to be thankful for what I have, and as I said in my speech, to give back on that is really important to me.
And you mentioned Foster McGaw and that.
Yes.
He was really instrumental in a lot of good things that have happened at Northwestern.
Right.
He was something of an inspiration. Did you get to know him very well?
I didn't.
Fairly late.
It was very late. We didn't really cross over in our careers, unfortunately. But of course, I read a lot about him, and he did do a lot for Northwestern and Chicago, and of course, American Hospital Supply.
Let's talk about the other side. To become a laureate of the Academy, it's not just enough to be successful in life. That's part of it. But you have to give back. You have to do something for your fellow man. How has that been working, or how does that work in your life? I know that there's a Knight Foundation. You're also actually very active at Northwestern and other institutions.
Right.
Could you speak to some of that?
Well, one of the things I really appreciated about the Lincoln Laureate process and the honor was that it was about giving back. And if you read a lot about Lincoln, he that's an ideal and a value that he espouses quite a bit, and that attracted me to being part of it. Again, I feel very fortunate to be where I'm at, and there have been a lot of people in my life who have helped instill a value that says, you know what, because you're giving these gifts, you need to give back, and you need to help those who may not have gotten as much as you got, as many head starts as you got, and as much help as you got. So, whether it's my wife, who has played a big role, 30 years together, and really has a strong value towards that, my parents, of course, who have taught that from the beginning in childhood. I've tried to be very successful in business, but also get involved in organizations that like North Shore Healthcare System, which of course is a key at providing healthcare across the North Shore. Northwestern, which great university here in Chicago. And then our foundation, which my wife and I started 5, 6, 7 years ago, again with the intent to bring our kids together and have our family have a mechanism to give back to the community. The mission of the foundation is to serve the underserved. It's very simple. It's really to help those in the basic needs like food, like shelter, like medical care. So we try to focus our giving in those areas.
I know that there's the Community Health Clinic in Chicago and Access to Care in suburban Cook County. Could you speak to those a little bit?
Well, they're great organizations. Community Health, actually, I got to know through our church, which we're very involved in, and they're one of the benevolences of our church. I was liaison, got to know them, and then, of course, with the healthcare connection, started to try to help them much more than just what I did originally. They are one of the largest free healthcare clinics, have hundreds of doctors and nurses that volunteer their time to provide healthcare to those who don't have, insurance. And the wonderful part about it is you walk into their front door, you could be in any clinic for-profit clinic in the world. There's no difference in quality, there's no difference in care, there's no difference in appearance, and they treat everybody just like you or I would be treated who have insurance walking into a great hospital, which, you know, that's the way it should be, you know, in the country. We should be providing care for everybody, you know, and good quality care for everybody.
And how does access to care work?
Access to care again deals again with this whole issue of the uninsured, those who don't have insurance, finding doctors, lining them up with patients who don't have access to an insurance program, and the doctors donate their time, and they also line them up with the prescription drugs and other things that are needed, the testing, the pharmaceutical testing that needs to happen, the lab testing, and they're a great organization to kind of bring all those people together to deal with this population that's not getting the primary care that they need.
Yeah, there's a huge gap between those who are like Medicaid eligible and those who have private insurance.
Exactly.
And that's where a lot of folks fall through the cracks. Yeah. We didn't talk about the commercial club, but I'm familiar with some of that as a legislative correspondent. I cover a lot of, I'm down in Springfield, good time of the year. How active are you with the commercial club?
Well, I joined the commercial club several years ago. I just joined the civic committee over the last year and a half. You know, it's a great organization. What I love about it is it's focused on, you know, basically trying to address issues to make Chicago a great place to work and a great place to be. And you know, candidly, we've got some serious issues in this state right now. Our budgets aren't balancing. It's no simpler than that, it's no more difficult than that. And we've got to make some tough decisions on how we get at that. And so the civic committee, it may not have all the answers, but it's trying to put the issues out there so people are talking about them and people are addressing them and not hiding behind borrowing more money, which isn't gonna solve the problem.
Well, it's a terrific think tank in policy. It does a great service in that. And it pulls a lot of the people together who can really make a lot of decisions.
That's right.
It does. We're getting to the end of the questions. I was just noticing that something of an athlete in the Chicago Triathlon.
Well, I said I turned 50. I said, you know, maybe I have one more chance to do something of significance, and did the Chicago Triathlon last summer. Now my interests have turned more to golf and tennis and maybe some more age-appropriate sports. But I've always been involved in athletics all my life.
Well, good for you. That's one I could never crack. I'll do the 5Ks and stuff like that, but wow, that's terrific.
Well, jumping in Lake Michigan to do that swim was a little scary, honestly.
Oh, I imagine so. The best I've ever done was we did a triathlon team where I did the running and somebody else did the biking and the swimming. I left that for them. As we come to a close, you spoke very warmly about your family and what they've done to support you over the years. It was very touching what you had to say about them. They're a great source of strength for you.
They are. You know, starting with my parents who have been there, great role model, great relationship, long-term, you know, commitment to each other. Always been there for me and my brothers and sisters. My wife, who I've known since 17 years old, you know, that's been a long-term relationship, and she's been, you know, the rock in my life and a real spiritual light. And then our 4 kids, you know, I mean, nothing more gratifying than having 4 children. Very proud of them. They've all done great in their own ways, and they're continuing to follow in that tradition of you know, success, but also giving back, which, you know, if you can instill that in your kids, I think you've probably done the most important thing in life. So I am very fortunate, very blessed, and I've had a lot of help from family, a lot of help from mentors, and you know, again, appreciate this whole Lincoln Laureate recognition. You know, has been just a special honor for me.
You're a young man still. What's next for you?
Well, there's still a lot to do. You know, for me, going to continue to focus on what I've done. Obviously, my family, my wife, and Roundtable, Aon, the charitable things I'm involved in. I think over time, what will happen is I'll move away from business a little bit and some of the quote making money and focus on giving money away and trying to help organizations that are on the non-for-profit side. And you know, I'd just like to create more and more time to do that over the next phase of my career.
One last question. Up to this point, what's given you the most satisfaction in life?
Well, there's no question. My wife, 4 kids, family. I mean, that's where come home at night and no matter what the problems of the day are, you know, that's where the true satisfaction and love is. So, setting up a family and a home with my wife and kids has been the most important thing to me.
Amen to that. Thanks very much.
Thank you.